Hello! Are you tired of trying to remember passwords for all those different systems you have to access over SSH? Let's change that to a much more secure method of authentication where you only have to remember one password. When accessing systems through SSH, you're generally going to get prompted for a password. But when you're dealing with a lot of systems, that can be a huge time sink, especially if you're trying to do some automation. That's not to mention that it's just plain cumbersome to remember or store all of those passwords anyway, and the inherent security risk that comes with those passwords, especially if you're not using any sort of centralized password management. Today, we're going to take a look at something called key-based authentication for SSH, sometimes called passwordless SSH, to make accessing all of those systems a breeze. This will also give you the groundwork you need to start using automation tools like Ansible to manage those systems. Alright, I'm going to try to SSH to one of my servers here. So we're going to do SSH Gillette, my username, at 10.0.1.10. I want to get into this server. I want to make some configuration changes today. Hopefully I can remember the password for this. Nope, not that one. Maybe this? Nope. Third time's the charm? There must be a better way! Alright, so password authentication is a bit of a pain. There's some merits to it, for sure. A lot of organizations use it. But we're going to try to set this up so that all I need to know is the password for my SSH key and nothing else. And that way I can access a whole bunch of systems with one password far more securely than having to remember a whole bunch of different passwords that every user is going to be using to access that system. So we're going to start off by running SSH copy ID, and then we're going to copy it over to the Gillette user at 10.0.1.10. So this is going to take my public key, and it's going to put it into the authorized keys file on that remote server. In this case, went straight through. I've actually already authenticated to this server off screen just to not show any of the password related stuff here. But what this will do now is I can SSH directly over to this server, 10.0.1.10. Awesome, I'm in. See, I'm on my automation server here. So what this has done is put my keys, last one here, into the authorized keys file. So basically any public key you add here will then be able to SSH into the server as that user specifically. So the other thing we can do now that we've got some sort of public key authentication set up here is we can actually change the configuration on this server to not even let you come in with a password anymore. So we're going to go ahead and edit our etc ssh sshd config file. And what this contains is a whole bunch of default values, or if you've customized it, it'll have custom values in there. But this controls all of the access through SSHD, so the SSH daemon that handles that authentication onto your system using SSH protocol. So if we do a quick search through here for password, we can see that the default thing, so here, line 56, default setting for password authentication is yes. I've actually also got this at the very end of the file, just as an example of an override, but everything you'll see in this file that's commented out that does not have a separate value like we've added here for password authentication is the default values. So that means that if you don't set anything else, that's what you're going to get. What we want to do in this case, however, is update this to not permit password authentication at all anymore. We only want to be able to come in through our public key. So we're going to save that out. And we're going to restart SSHD. And then we're going to try to SSH back to this server again as a user where I haven't copied over the SSH key. So we're going to hop over here. And we're going to try to SSH to Gillette 10.0.1.10. And you can see here I'm getting permission denied public key. So what this message will tell you is the authentication methods that the server does support. So here we can see the only thing enabled is public key. If I go back to my other user and try to SSH over, you can see I get through with no issue. So at the beginning of this video, we talked about the fact that you can do all this now with just one password, or as you saw in this video, possibly no passwords, right? You just need to log into your machine and have access to that key file. Obviously, that poses some security concerns. If you can go in and just have that file and access any servers, that can be problematic if somebody gets a hold of that. The other option that you have, using this exact same method, is when you create that key in the first place for your machine, you can actually set a password on that. So on that key we were using, I actually have a very strong password set up. It's quite long and complex, we'll leave it at that. But effectively, if I need to go through and use that key, if it's not cached like it is right now, I'll actually get prompted for that. So I will have to type in that password. The cool thing about that, though, is that now, instead of having to remember the passwords for the 10, 15, 20 different servers I access on sort of a daily or weekly basis sometimes, I just need to remember that one password for my SSH key, and I can get